I've played tons of NES games from various genres, but to me, the satisfaction of beating an NES game, or really any game, comes from the accomplishment of taking out a boss. Previously in another episode, I talked about what is in my opinion the hardest bosses on the NES, and you as a community voted for your next collective episode to be about the polar opposite, what I consider the easiest bosses on the NES. Now this is a tough list to make because I haven't played every single NES game, nor have I beaten many that you might have, so while this list won't be definitive from my opinion, instead I'm going to bring up 10 bosses that I know for a fact are laughably easy. Now before we get into this, I want to create one core ground rule. These bosses cannot be easy due to any exploit. It has to be the native fight. Also, I am discussing bosses or boss encounters from a game, so there is a potential for spoilers, and if you want to avoid that, then you might want to hold off on this episode. But if you're okay with it, then let's begin. I actually just recently checked this out for an episode I'm working on concerning the top 10 best space games on the NES. And brother, oh, this is a rough one. We know it as Xexyz, I think that's how you say it. But in Japan, it's known as Kame no Ongaishi Urashima Densetsu, which literally means repayment of the turtle, the legend of Urashima. Rolls right off the tongue, right? We play as Apollo, and the game itself is a mishmash of different perspectives. Sometimes it's a side-scroller, sometimes it's a shooter. The whole idea is that we're going to save Maria from the evil Garuza, and by proxy, we're saving the planet. The problem is, to do so means to sit through all 12 areas of abhorrent nonsense. And what's funny is that all the bosses in this game are incredibly easy if you have the right weapon. For example, Area 1's boss is Breza, he's a space fish, and if you have the 45 ball, he's toast. Same with Stenza, the boss from Area 3, 45 ball it up. It's a really early Atlas game, and it's not for me, but it might be for you, and that's all that matters. On the topic of games that have incredibly easy bosses that are 100% a pushover, Adventure Island is one of those. For anyone who doesn't know, Adventure Island is the NES version of Wonder Boy on the Sega Master System, and given the popularity of the franchise once it hit the NES, there was an entire offshoot of games that aligned with Mr. Crisco Feet Higgins himself. This game is not easy, and it mostly boils down to some of the most bullshit jumps in a platformer you will ever encounter. But that being said, once you complete a group of levels, you'll come to a boss, of which is the exact same every single time. It's like a statue that just stands there for a few seconds, then it like hobbles towards you, and then it throws a single fireball, which is incredibly easy to dodge. You just stand there lobbing tomahawks at his head, then his head flies off, and wow, congrats, you beat it. Metroid is a game you either love or you hate. To me, it's a game that screams, what if we made exploration feel like a punishment? It's an aggressively abstract and vague environment where we're going room to room trying to beat a game that has a narrative depth of a VCR manual. That's just how the game was back then. While I dislike it, I would be a fool to not acknowledge that this game and the mechanics of design of Metroid paved the way not only for future games in this franchise, but also for a genre, the Metroidvania genre. Samus is a very lovable character. She's very relatable too. She's a popular feminine icon. She represents strength, wit, and courage, but there is one other character that stands out to me, and that is Ridley. Now, Ridley is a reoccurring threat in the Metroid universe, and to me, he's Samus's personal demon. Where Batman has Joker, Samus has Ridley. And he's so loved that he all but got willed into Super Smash Bros. By the collective fanbase. True story. But his boss fight in the original Metroid, it's kind of silly. He's just a little jumping bean with fireballs. He basically shoots spaghetti sauce at you, and he dies if you shoot him with a few missiles. This is in stark comparison to his other appearances. His fight will get significantly tougher as the franchise progresses. Kirby is one of those franchises I always knew about, but I never took the time to play. I mean, most of us knew who Kirby was. He was a character that always stood out, a little pink suck machine of doom. I myself was introduced to him in Super Smash Bros., and at one point I rented Kirby 64 and I was vehemently disappointed in it. It would be a long time before I played any Kirby games, and as a streamer, I started with Kirby's Dream Land on the Game Boy, a wonderfully fun game for kids and adults alike. Now, I haven't played the sequel Kirby's Adventure, but I have seen tons of my friends play it for retro achievements, and one of the bosses you fight is King Dedede. He's tough, but not by much. He's the walking example of, hey, I'm about to do this move. You know, like in certain animes where the character is morally obligated to brag about his stupid fucking move. You know, like the protagonist is standing there and he just rips into this, by the power of my ancestors, the forbidden text messages, the ghost of my dog, and the unpaid parking tickets that curse my bloodline, I summon forth the wrath of 13 suns, condensed into a gluten-free energy beam of divine retribution. Transdimensional hypernova justice phoenix spiral deluxe omega final symphony slash of eternal reckoning heaven's cringe overdrive! That's Dedede. He kind of charges at you like he has bowling balls for feet, and we know when he's about to jump. He can suck you in like Kirby, but you can just like, I don't know, walk away from it. And he swings his hammer like he's on Ambien. He's a big old pushover. But what comes after will kick your butt if you're not careful. Nightmare. You know, in the grand scheme of things, we're really lucky that we had a Mega Man 2 because Mega Man 1 wasn't successful, and that's crazy to me. Capcom relied on word of mouth to really get traction for the franchise, and thankfully it did, because to this day, it's the one franchise from Capcom with the most entries. It's crazy how some companies care about their legacy IPs. Isn't it, Konami? Mega Man 2 to me is the one that matters the most. The visuals, the music, the overall gameplay experience, it felt balanced, harsh, but fair. To many people, this is one of the greatest games on the NES, and the elements of this game alone still are used to this day. Now, the easiest boss of this game, and really one of the easiest bosses on the whole console, is Bubble Man. He fights you like he's underwater because, he is. His bubbles aren't really that dangerous, and he kind of just jumps around. But don't shit too hard on those bubbles. They're a mystery mouse tool for later. If you played this, you already know. Mega Man 2 is a tremendously fun game, and I do suggest people play it. It's very important to the overall franchise. Whew. For a long time, this was the most expensive NES game that I owned. But I had to have it. My experience with the Blue Bomber stems from a Blockbuster rental when I was a kid. The game was Mega Man 64, and even though it was as cringe as putting I identify as an intellectual in the opening statement of your resume, I actually liked it. I loved the campy voice lines, the open world nature of the game, at least before you went into the dungeon instances. Those kind of sucked. But if we go all the way back to the one game that started it all, it was a tough one, a genuinely tough game that did not hold your hand. And I'm curious, how many of you loved this game growing up? How did it feel rising to the challenge of beating this tough game in the era of Nintendo Hard? Feel free to tell me in the comment section below. After all, I do read and respond to every single comment, even the mean ones. To me, the boss that I found to be stupid easy was Cut Man. After all, the entire fight is basically you beating up a crash test dummy. He hops around a lot and he's very much predictable. His rolling cutter is silly, and with the Mega Buster, he's history. It could also be argued that Bomb Man is up there as well, but that's the charm of Mega Man. It's not the robot masters that will ruin your day, it's the stages leading up to it, and I enjoy that challenge. Well, with this game being talked about, you already know who the boss is going to be because there really only is one, the big Turtle King himself, King Koopa, or Bowser depending on where you live. Super Mario Bros. Was always important to me because it was the first NES game I ever played, and that holds true for many of us. Mario was a pack-in game and it had 4 major releases. If you watched my previous episode, My Retro Life Story, I talk about how Dad had the combo card for Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt, and it was one of those games that we just bonded over. Now, the crazy thing about the fight with Bowser is that it's almost always the same, just wait until he jumps and then run towards the axe, that's it. Obviously, the final Bowser encounter is somewhat more difficult because he's hurling little hammers and spitting fire and jumping far less, but guess what? If you're not a tiny Mario, you can just run through them, tank the damage, hit the axe, kill Bowser to an OSHA violation. That's literally how it goes. But you could always just stand there and fight him, right? Just stand there and shoot fireballs at him, and eventually he'll die. And if you do it for the early iterations of Bowser, you'll see that all of those were decoys. Little thing for you to try. I grew up playing Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. 3. I did not have any interest in playing 2, and I don't know why. When I played Super Mario All-Stars as a kid, I just glanced over it. I genuinely don't know why. As an adult, I did beat it, but it was different. I knew that there was a difference in how Mario 2 was released. In Japan, they had Super Mario Bros. 2, which was more of a ROM hack of the original Mario. But in the US, we had a reskin of another game, Yumi Kojo Doki Doki Panic. While I shit on Super Mario Bros. 2 quite often, it's really not a bad game, it's just silly. I did like that most of the elements applied to the characters in Mario 2 did carry over. Like Luigi jumping higher, Peach floating as she falls, that's something we still see to this day. But the final boss of Super Mario Bros. 2 is Wart, a big old frog with a fancy little crown. Now, many of you likely haven't played Doki Doki Panic, so let's catch you up on his purpose in that game. Wart abducts the youngest brother and sister from an Arabian family by yoinking them away in a magical storybook. The people we can play as are two siblings, Imogen and Lena, as well as the parents, Mama and Papa. In the Super Mario 2 world, Mario has a dream that Wart has taken over Subcon, or the Land of Dreams, no more no less. So, to me, he has a less relevant plot presence than he did in the original game, and honestly, I wish they would have just kept Bowser, but instead, we got Wart. Throw some veggies down his throat, watch him choke to death, wake up, go to work. I'm sad that he wasn't kept in the lore like the Shy Guys were, but he did make an appearance in Link's Awakening, where he teaches us a song for the ocarina. It might be strange to see Punch-Out on this list because that game has a pretty harsh difficulty curve. I mean, Bald Bull, Piston Honda, Soda Popinski, they're all run killers if you aren't used to their attacks. But if you make it to the major circuit, you'll run into King Hippo, a big old man with a fancy little crown and apparently one of the worst cases of an umbilical hernia that you will ever see. When he shows up, you'll quickly learn his defense isn't one that you're going to get through practically, so you'll likely keep dodging until you find an opening, which luckily for you is projected by him opening up his big old hippo mouth. If you whack him there, his trunks will fall down, and you'll see his belly button with a big old X on top of it. X marks the spot. Just keep wailing on that X and you'll see King Hippo fall to the ground, and unlike other bosses we encounter, he's not going to get up. And to me, it's kind of a neat little reprieve because the rest of the people we fight, they're not going to be so easy. In fact, they're going to be some of the most difficult fights you'll ever encounter on the NES. A lot of folks like Mega Man 3. I am not a huge fan of it. To me, Mega Man 1 and 2 were shining examples of what Mega Man was on the NES. I loved 4 as well. But between me and you, 3 and 6, those are the ones that I didn't really enjoy. But we've talked about tons of different Robot Masters this episode, so which one do you think is going to be the one I'm choosing from Mega Man 3? We have tons of options. We have Shadow Man, Spark Man, Magnet Man, Top Man, Hard Man, Snake Man, Gemini Man, and of course Needle Man. But to me, out of all the Robot Masters we fight, Top Man is the stupidest. When I play Mega Man 3, this is the first fight I do because Top Man is incredibly predictable. Beyond easy to dodge, and once you slip by him, he's open for a counterattack. The Mega Buster is quite efficient against him, and it helps that he lives up to his namesake by becoming a spinning top most of the fight. And you know there's always going to be those enemies that serve as tutorial bosses in some ways, and for me, Top Man is exactly that. And once we beat him, we get his weapon, which is about as useful as doing an interpretive dance and hoping your enemy gets bored and walks away. But hey, it's a legacy game that kept a legacy franchise moving forward, and I will never ding Capcom for that. I'm fairly certain that by seeing this game again, you already know who is going to occupy this space. Glass Joe. I feel really bad for Glass Joe. He's an incredible pushover. He's 38, he's from Paris, he's 5'10 and 110 pounds, with an outstanding boxing record of 1-99. He's notoriously weak, and he seems to have no cognitive awareness whatsoever. His name even is a play on one of the more important aspects of fighting, a glass jaw. For anyone who's unfamiliar with the term, to have a glass jaw implies an inherent lack of conditioning on your chin, meaning if you get hit on your chin really hard, night-night. When used in a sentence, I met Chuck Liddell the other day and a fly landed on his chin and he just crumpled over. Must have a glass jaw. Now you know, for anyone who checks out Punch-Out either in the arcades or on the NES or maybe even on the Wii, you'll encounter Glass Joe and it will be one of the easiest fights of your life. But I will say, I'm glad to see that Glass Joe's difficulty increased for the title defense mode of Punch-Out, released in 2009. That was a nice redemption arc for Joe, and if there was anyone who deserved a second chance, it was Joe. And that's it for today's episode. What did you think of this list? What are your picks for the easiest bosses on the NES? Feel free to let us know down in the comments section below. Who knows, maybe you'll create a positive memory for someone else in the community. Speaking of our community, if you made it to the end of this episode, you're already home with us. We're a gathering of video game enthusiasts that love remembering a time when life was just a little bit easier to live, and if you align with that, feel free to subscribe. Finally, the single most important thing you can do for me is to hit that thumbs up button, as it directly impacts the visibility of the videos and the projects that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes. Fortefyre out.